What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 34 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Thorgrim Grudgebearer Old World campaign. So as we saw last time, we have at last declared war on the first of the Elven factions, the Order of Loremasters, as Thorgrim faced off against Teclis in, I gotta say, a pretty good battle. The Elves, well, if they didn't quite give us a lot of trouble, they did give us a bit. And honor a worthy foe, even if they are Elgi. The rest of the faction will, however, be destroyed with ease, as it looks like that was Teclis' only army, as he wasn't doing super well. Otherwise, we are looking this episode to attack the Crimson Skull Coronate faction, as I think that should be pretty fun, and see how they stack up against us. In addition to that, we are on the way to the other elves. We've reached sort of the borders of the territories of Otharion the Grim, who's going to be very unhappy once we start wiping him out, and we are approaching with our Dragon Slayer army, our purpose-built anti-dragon army, to go after the Knights of Calador, and we'll see how Imric handles either them or possibly as well Joseph of Zorn if he makes it back by then having hopefully destroyed the Hag Grief Dark Elves. Anyway, in terms of what we got left this turn, absolutely nothing. The only reason I didn't end the turn between the episodes is that we're besieging, I think, in 3 different locations, and there's a pretty decent likelihood that we're going to get attacked somewhere. So we may as well fight those battles. Let me just double check that there is nothing. Okay, looks like I already did this. Good. Outpost availables can be ignored, and let's end the turn. Let's see about those fights. Alright, and there's the first. Okay, I gotta say, this one I was not expecting. Astragoth Ironhand will actually be intercepted by Grombrindal. Now, normally I might say this isn't worth his time, as it's a relatively small army, but it is Astragoth, and who knows if Grombrindal will get to face off against him again. Plus, I think Grombrindal would enjoy destroying some of the Chaos Dwarfs, even if it's probably going to be his army that does it. Anyway, let's do this fight. Go. Wait. Quick save, and then go. And yes. Huh, I really like this lighting. I'm just wondering what exactly is it from? I mean, we're in the Underway, and we're in the Chaos Dwarfen territories as well, since we can see all the crazy Chaos Dwarfen industrial stuff everywhere. At least I think so. I guess maybe all of this lava is lighting up the cavern? Interesting. Anyway, the explosions of the Chaos Dwarfs, as in the Chaos Dwarf exploding and not in a good way, are going to be what's lighting up the cavern rather shortly. Now we're going to back off a little bit and allow them to move towards us. Why back off? I just wanted to get our units into the light a little bit more. Not that this is a particularly dark map or anything like that. Astragoth's moving towards us with level 22. Good luck to him, I think, as that's not going to be anywhere near enough. Frankly, his army would be very lucky to actually be able to reach Grombrindal's army, which most armies in the recent times, as in singular armies, have failed. 2 stacks or 2 or 3 stacks have a chance. 1 army, and not so much. Anyway, it looks like over on the left flank, or our right flank, the enemy will send for some of those hobgob wolf raiders who take torp after torp to the face, to the wolf, to the extremities, or whatever. Basically, they're all gonna die. And I think, judging by the fact that the enemy is having such a bad time, and will continue to do so, ooh, look at that. Mr. Gordis is going to move forward. How many torps can he take before he melts away? Well, it looks like a volley or 2 because he gone. The rest of the enemy army will continue making its way forward and will suffer similar results as we continue melting them away with this obnoxious Iron Breaker and Iron Drake army. In the meantime, I've decided to not kill Astragoth Ironhand with Grombrindal because his army might not have a chance, but we can give him a chance to fight. And it looks like for whatever reason he's standing back here instead of heading towards our army. Which is kind of interesting just by virtue of the fact that he's a pretty decent fighter if he actually closes the distance. That said, does he have any kind of chance against Grombrindal? I don't think so. He's lost about a quarter of his HP. Grombrindal is completely unharmed and with all his buffs has 171 armor, 140 and 136 melee attack and defense, and 1.2k weapon strength. Don't get me wrong, Astragoth is no slouch, but has less than half of the melee attack and defense. And by the looks of it, a few more blows should delete him just as we are deleting his army. And yeah, man, the torpedo explosions look absolutely fantastic in this lighting. I mean, I've always loved fighting in the Darklands because of their maps and the lighting just generally. It looks pretty great. Anyway, it looks like with his army melted away, Astragoth is not unbreakable and will use those feet of his to attempt to escape Grombrindal. Unfortunately for him, Grombrindal runs at 70 speed and has Strider, about as fast Thorgrim is, and you ain't gonna escape either one of them. Alrighty, there we go. That went about as well for poor Astragoth as can have been expected, which is not at all 0 losses and no damage. He did have a minor army. I just wanted to make sure that Gromby got at least a couple blows against Astragoth there. And admittedly, Astragoth has a pretty darn nice beard. Anyway, we are going to, I guess, ransom, doesn't really matter, and continue on. This wasn't one of the fights that I expected, so we should have more. Alrighty, there we go. This one was one of the fights I was expecting. Pyrrhic victory, casualties high. It's gonna be something of a range shootout, but generally speaking, it's a pretty solid force. I got Eagles, I got 2 bolt throwers, a couple Lothern Skycutters as well, tons and tons of range in the form of Lothern Seaguard, and the Swordsmasters and Phoenix Guard, a dragon. That should be pretty fun. Alright, Belegar, this might actually properly test you as an army. Let's see how you do. Alrighty, to battle indeed against the hated Elgi, who have brought a lot of elites to this particular fight. And we'll see if that pays off for them. And the fact that most of our army is technically tier 2 and 1, as in it's miners with blasting charges, Bugman's Rangers, and bolt throwers, technically speaking, low tier. However, these guys have gotten pretty darn strong over the course of the campaign, the upgrades, etc, etc, etc. Anyway, the enemy does have a nice sun dragon floating over its artillery pieces, and rather than target the artillery, we'll target the sun dragon first. It looks like some of those bolts are going absolutely crazy. Though the Sun Dragon is having a pretty bad time of it as it goes down. Alright, it didn't even have time to finish what I was gonna say. There we go. And next we've got the artillery piece to target, though it might be using that idol of Gork or possibly Mork in order to block some of those artillery shots. They are still managing to get through the gap between the idol and the tree, though it does look like a fair few are impacting upon the tree. And they still do manage to knock out 3 out of the 4 eagle claws before they manage to fully hide themselves. Alright, well, the bombardment's going to continue. We're going to reposition slightly. One of our bolt throwers will continue targeting the enemy bolt thrower, while the rest will start targeting the enemy single entity. Noble takes a couple hits and quickly drops down to about half of his HP, and it looks like the enemy realized that they do not have bolt thrower superiority. Not just not having range superiority, but not having bolt thrower specific superiority means that they've got to move towards us. Last bolt thrower has repositioned itself, and we're going to try to bring it down with that Zipbar 42 pounders, which damages the crew and breaks apart the breaks apart the bolt thrower. Fantastic. Here come the enemy's swords. Masters of Koeth will lead the charge. It looks like we got Sisters of Avalorn firing their magical arrows at us, but they are specifically, it appears, targeting the Iron Breakers, which are at the tip of with the spear here. Sadly, we don't yet have the technology that will give them the Shield Wall of Grombrindal ability, so they won't have the ludicrous amount of missile resistance that they normally might, but I mean... Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Lothar and Seaguard and 4 units of Lothar and Seaguard and 1 unit of Sisters of Avalorn targeting them, and they're still looking pretty okay. A gold shield on them, 85% block. Oh, so it isn't maxed out at 7A. Fantastic. 130 armor, 9 physical, and 20 missile resistance. If they had Shield Wall of Grombrindal, it would be particularly disgusting. Swordsmasters of Hoeth move in with about half of their HP, but while they can block arrows with those fancy swords of theirs, they can't block blasting charges, and lose another quarter of their HP before they manage to close the distance with some of the miners. Alright, and Miners versus Swordsmasters of Hoeth is kind of a hilarious matchup, but it looks like these Swordsmasters are far too scared to continue in that manner. Looks like Melendai, an enemy fire mage, has arrived on a Sun Dragon. But we're going to pincushion said dragon with at least a couple of our units of Bugman's Rangers and 1 or 2 of our Bolt Throwers, and rather rapidly bring that fire mage down, or at least heavily damage her. Otherwise, miners are also facing off against the enemy White Lions. The dragon goes down. Looks like the enemy is also moving around us with some Phoenix Guard. And since it's taking a little bit too long to deal with the shielded enemy Lothar and Seaguard, we decided to send some of the miners with blasting charges forth. A single volley does about 30% of the HP and damage to 1 unit, and we have tons and tons of blasting charge ammunition. Much faster to do it this way. Lovely. Out here, it looks like the Phoenix Guard are moving in. They have... Oh! Huh, I was wrong. I thought they would have had massive fire resistance. That's surprising that they don't. I didn't even bother chucking blasting charges at them because I figured they'd have massive fire resistance and there would be no point, but it looks like I should have. Oh well, it looks like the miners will just have to face off against the Phoenix Guard directly, with the Phoenix Guard also taking shots from one of our units of Bugman's Rangers, firing into their flanks. And now a Bolter added to the mix as well. Enemy Eagles have landed, but our Runesmith, which was in the center of the line, continues to menace them. And our main line, whether it be miners or ironbreakers, continue to hold off those White Lions, those Swordsmasters, and those Phoenix Guard. And they're doing so pretty darn well. That said, the Ironbreakers are down to about half of their HP, but they've only lost 6 of their models so far, which means it's really not yet going so well for the enemy Elven, or for the Elven Infantry Elite. Unit of Phoenix Guard on the flanks has failed. I do believe the enemy attempted a shootout with us, with the enemy... Not the Bolt Thrower. Well, I guess they do have Bolt Throwers, the Lothar and Skycutters, but simply got knocked out of the sky with the much more cutting Dowie bolts. And the balance of power has shifted to about 80% in our favor. There's still a few of the enemy elites in the fight, whether it be the White Lions or Belegar facing off against the Phoenix Guard. But the battle is starting to go in our favor. Over on the right flank, that 1 unit of miners has obliterated all of the enemy's Sea Guard there with good old-fashioned, or maybe not so old-fashioned, blasting charges. I'm going to summon some Ghost Pals on the field as well to help out against the Phoenix Guard. Not that at this point I think they're very much needed. But it's Belegar's army, and he's got to have as many ghost pals running around as possible. These 3, and then the shield breakers, and then also the summoned Thane on top of the Thanes that he has with him. Time to move more units forward. Of course, a few of the enemy will come back, but we can reposition our miners, and since that blasting charge chucking strategy worked so well against those Lothar and Seaguard, we may as well continue capitalizing on it. This little tree is annoying, getting in the way of the camera. And it looks like the enemy spear line has broken. The Phoenix Guard and the Swordsmasters and the White Lions have all failed. The units of Lothar and Seaguard, or at least the last units of Lothar and Seaguard that remain, will melt away under fire from ranger bolts and from blasting charges, and with that, the Elven Elite will break, and the battle will be ours. Beautiful. Absolutely fantastic work from Belegar. We did take a fair bit of damage on a fair few units. The Ironbreaker's down to half of their HP, though at the end only 10 of their models lost, so they'll recover to like 90%, a little bit less. A couple of our miners took a lot of damage, these two in particular, but it does make sense considering the tier 4 and 5 units that they were holding off being a tier 1 unit. Well done. Alrighty, that was a really nice fight. We took quite a bit of damage on a lot of our units, at least in terms of HP, though the model losses weren't too bad. We also saw miners holding off Swordsmasters and Phoenix Guard, as well as White Lions, which was just fantastic. Sisters of Avalorn having a shootout with Bugman's Rangers, as well as the Lothern Sea Guard. Our bolt throwers knocking dragons and eagles out of the sky, and the Lothern Sky Cutters as well. Lots of good work from our various units of Ghost Pals, and just generally overall a really nice fight. And got to appreciate the elves for it. Anyway, in terms of damage, looks like, oh wow, this one miner unit. Oh, I remember this one. 31,000 damage, 183 kills. This was the miner unit that went forward on the right flank away from the rest of our army, and then promptly used its blasting charges to obliterate 3 units of Lothern Sea Guard, which was pretty fantastic. Solid work. We're just going to heal to full because why not? Alrighty, now I actually completely forgot about this one. Lots of surprises in the center, and well, you can also see why I didn't end it between the episodes. Stotchel Gundrickson, who has just a pile of essentially random units that we were using as an auto-resolve army, is going to get attacked by the Ironclaw Orcs, and a fair bit of them, I should say. Lots of Orc Biggins, Black Orcs, and whatnot, and this is not one of our super-powered armies. No artillery to speak of either. So, yeah, I'd wager this should be a pretty darn tough fight. Always a good thing. Let's give the Ranger standard, I guess, to our one singular unit. And oh, I forgot to upgrade these Dwarf Warriors to Longbeards. Well, they're just gonna have to do their best to survive like the rest of the army. Go.
Why are you all following me? It's really annoying. Just go and kill something. Go!
Alrighty, here we go. This should be a pretty darn interesting fight. There's a lot of enemies to contend with, and we technically have no buffs in this particular auto-resolve, formerly auto-resolve, I guess, army. Well, it's gotta do what you gotta do. Now, normally when I do this battle, I deploy either here, where this tower can protect your flank, and you can use the woods as well, but it's a little bit close to the edge of the map, and I still don't like that. And the other option usually is to deploy up here. You have this nice hill formation, can fire down upon the enemy as they slowly clamber their way up there, and your flank, or your left flank at least, is still protected by the impassable terrain here, and then your other flank is protected by the fact that the enemy has to climb a hill to get to you. However, since the enemy is going to be waiting for its reinforcements to arrive on the field this time around, I figured we should take a different, maybe a little bit more interesting position, and who knows, maybe a slightly more effective one in this particular situation as well. The thing is, the enemy has a lot of range units, and well, these wooded territories might actually be somewhat beneficial to us in preventing them from attacking. Speaking of attacking, it looks like the first of the enemies have moved on into pile of boar boy biggins, who will charge our units of Longbeards. But Longbeards, very defensive unit, especially standing in the trees where the boar boys will be debuffed, should be pretty okay. More boar boys attempt to charge on in, and the Longbeards hold them back while the Thunderers begin to fire, but well, pretty much the entire army is still very much on the way. Now, in terms of the way that I decided to deploy this, I actually decided to put most of our units of Longbeards within the depression and this little valley down here. This will hopefully enable our Thunderers to fire down on the units as they go downhill, even if it is giving up a slight elevation advantage to the enemy. I just think in this particular situation, it would probably be better for us. Now, obviously, the enemy outnumbers us by a fairly large margin. They are going to take advantage of that. We got 3 boar boys and a unit of trolls looking to hit us over on the right flank. The enemy's range units are still moving towards us. Looks like we do have a goblin rock lobber trying to lob rocks at us, but on the bright side, all of these trees should be preventing it from landing most of its shots. Now, since these guys are not protected by the tree line, it's probably a good idea then to take advantage of that and try to knock out as many of them as possible. We have 2 units, just the Dwarf Warriors, no Longbeards, over on this side, one with Great Weapon, one with a regular weapon or sword and board, and we're going to have them just try to distract the units of Trolls and Boar Boys. It is 2 versus 4, but hopefully they should be sufficient to do that. Then we move at least 2 of our units of Coilers in and the unit of Thunderers, and they're going to begin firing upon the now unobstructed units of Boar Boys. All will focus down one unit, hopefully forcing it to break and or shatter, or at least lose a significant amount of units, and then switch to the next unit instead. As to whether they'll be able to hold ground, I guess we're going to have to see. The unit of Dwarf Warriors took a charge from the Boar Boys and the Trolls and has lost about 20% of its HP, and these Dwarf Warriors have lost more than most of the Boar Boys have as well. It looks like we're going to need more Quarrelers to get enough damage going before the enemy outkills our Dwarf Warriors here, so we're going to send in more Quarrelers to up the number of bolts, finding Orc and Pigs. Alright, otherwise we have managed to summon our Ghost Pals, our Ancestral Shield Breakers, in the midst of one of the enemy hordes, just going to try to distract as many Boar Boys, Biggins, and Black Orcs, basically elites, as we can with them. I don't expect them to do a crazy amount of damage, but hopefully enough. We've also found the enemy Lord, I believe, in here somewhere, which is a Black Orc Big Boss. Oh, I guess the Lord is the Savage Orc Shaman over there, but the Black Orc Big Boss is being focused down by our Lord here. It's happening in the middle of the tree line, and thus too dark to see. Alright, it does look like a fairly decently large pile of units have made their way down to the depression, and it looks like the plan with the positioning of the Coilers and Thunderers did work out. Enemy pump wagons attempted to move their way in, and we were able to snipe them in the midst of the enemy blob, just by virtue of the fact that we were able to fire down upon them. Alrighty, and we have essentially a very thin line of Longbeards here, as we essentially had to spread them out as thin as possible to try to just hold back the tide. It is working for now, but it probably won't work forever since we are outnumbered. Looks like the Longbeards are down by about 30%, 40% of their HP. These Dens are down by about 50%, and so are these. And the enemy still has both the numbers and the balance of power superiority. It looks like we've managed to at least rout one of the units of Trolls. The first of the 3 units of Boar Boys has been destroyed, shattered, and has fled the battlefield, and we still have to work on the other 2. And presumably the Trolls will come back as well, because while they did take about half of their HP and damage, they're Trolls, and they will regenerate while running away, and since they didn't lose any of their models, they actually should more or less be fine. And there we go. Oh, 12 models rather than 8. But they did lose 1, so there's that at least. They're still regenerating though. Oh, it looks like another one of the units of Boar Boys is out of the picture now, and we are down to 1. And we have committed a lot of our range firepower to this, so hopefully it works out decently. The Longbeards are still holding back the massive tide of Biggins and Orc Boys, generally speaking, but are doing so well. I do believe our Lord in the dark has defeated the enemy Black Orc Big Boss as well, even if we couldn't see the duel. And it is nice. It's not as important as if it was the actual enemy Lord, but I don't think we can go through the entire enemy army as yet to try to chase him down. Over on the right flank, it looks like more Trolls have arrived, and damn, it's like the 3rd or 4th wall already. How long has this fight been going on? 8 minutes. 8 minutes with about, I want to say, a minute or 2 to get into position before the fight started. So pretty dang a lengthy brawl so far. Anyway, our Lord, together with the Ancestral Shield Bearers, are going after the Trolls now, especially with the Trolls hidden in the tree line. We probably can't fire too effectively at them with Quarrelers or with Thunderers, and admittedly this battle is a pretty darn target-rich environment, so it's not like there aren't other things, and heck, even other trolls to fire upon. Fortunately, this time they decided to move into this position, where we have the advantage of the hill, and thus the Thunderers and Quarrelers were able to find them and delete them, or at the very least shatter them. There we go. That dropped 4 more units, and that unit is pretty much done for. Looks like the Dwarf Warriors just barely managed to win on the right flank with the support of all the range units, and now the range units are, frankly, getting ready to move into melee. Our melee units are in bad shape. A unit of Dwarf Warriors is fleeing, having been destroyed by 2 Orc Boar Boy Biggins attacking them, and another unit of Longbeards is fleeing as well. It looks like the Quarrelers are just going to have to try to handle themselves, get a few more quarrels off nearly point blank, and then start whacking away with those great weapons. But that's why you bring the great weapon Quarrelers. They're decent melee combatants, or, well, yeah, they're pretty okay, at least with the buffs that we have. 90 armor, 34 melee attack, 48 melee defense, and 38 and 35 in the great weapon variant, as opposed to the shields. They do have armor piercing on those weapons as well. Looks like the first of the enemy Black Orc units has fled and might come back, but the other one is down to 20% of its HP as well. Naturally, we've been focusing down the Black Orcs more than, and the Biggins more than other units, at least on the main line with our Quarrelers. The Longbeards right at the bottom of this valley are still holding as well. These guys have been probably getting the least support of all of our units so far, and they're doing a damn fine job. Bounce of power still in the enemy's favor, 10 minutes in, and a heck of a fight. It looks like we are starting to get a little bit overwhelmed. Will this army's first and only non-auto-resolve battle see them destroyed? I guess we're going to have to find out. More Quarrelers have been forced to make their way into melee, and frankly, this one is nearly out of ammunition anyway, so they're going to bolster the melee line shortly as well. Longbeards are nearly out. I do believe the Ancestral Shield Bearers are down to about 15% of their HP, though our Lord is still in the midst of the fight somewhere in the dark here. Been fighting in the dark the entire time. But I guess Dwarfs will be pretty used to it with all the tunnel fighting they do. Though I imagine they're not super happy about having to fight in the darkness of the trees instead. Anyway, fire away those las bolts, Quarrelers, and get a few more units routing, or ideally shattering if you can. First of our units of Quarrelers have forced their way into melee now to bolster the line, as they're completely out of ammo, and a couple more are getting ready to join them. The Boar Boys that were that defeated that unit of Dwarf Warriors are now fleeing, having been in turn defeated by the melee and range Quarrelers. We're now facing off against some more Biggins, who are shaken, very tired, and our Quarrelers are still confident in melee. Lovely to see. Alrighty, and how are we doing otherwise? Bounce of power is still in the enemy's favor. Looks like one of the units of Thunderers is routing, and did the enemy range unit reposition itself, as in not the Grudge Thrower, the Rock Lobber? I saw at least 3 shots make their way through those trees. Not so great. And it looks like with that, all but that one unit of Longbeards have now collapsed and have all booked it on out of there, and our more of our range units are about to be hit in melee as well. The Thunderers are probably going to be weaker in melee than the Great Weapon Quarrelers are, so we'll let them fight a little bit until our Quarrelers are ready to reposition and then take up the melee line. And then we'll move the Thunderers out and have them work in melee instead. Or back in range. Still impressed that these Longbeards are still holding down. They're 230 kills to their name, pretty darn solid, and 25,000 damage. Still can't get towards the enemy Lord, and the bounce of power remains in the enemy's favor. It looks like our range line is now being overrun, and all we can do is hope that the Quarrelers can hold the melee line. What a fantastic fight. This is it almost feels like an earlier game fight, since we're only using Longbeards and Quarrelers. And I guess because we don't have Lords or anything like that, we have no auras, no real red line buffs, no veterancy. Well, we have about half veterancy, but anyway. Missing a lot of stuff that would make this army strong, obviously. And the fact that it's led by a Slayer Lord that was just auto-resolving stuff. You know, if he manages to win this, I might give him a proper army to reward him and then transfer this auto-resolve army to somebody else. That's a big if, however. Bounce of power is still in the enemy's favor. Last unit of Black Orcs is nearly done, but it looks like they're nearly fighting to the end. And oh, just as they were about to rout, the enemy will activate yet another Wah 13 minutes in. Yeah, this might be the longest battle we've had in the campaign so far, and both of our armies are fighting to the end, it looks like. The rest of the Quarrelers are getting ready to charge on into melee. Now we have no Longbeards, no Dwarf Warriors remaining. The Thunderers, we're still letting thunder away as best they can. Gotta use up their ammunition, and they can still do decent damage, especially to those darn Black Orcs, which I believe have routed at this point, and now we're just trying to make sure that they are gunned down as they run away, so that they don't return. And oh, it looks like the enemy is in the same position with running out of ammunition as the enemy artillery crew ran out and decided to join the rest of the enemies in melee. And it looks like at last the heroic unit of Longbeards that was down at the bottom of the valley has routed as well, and the rest of the Quarrelers are now facing off against Orc Error Boys, who also ran out of ammunition. Oh, fantastic. But Orc Error Boys are actually pretty solid in melee as well. They have no melee defense, but they have some good weapon strength. In fact, they have higher weapon strength than even Great Weapon Quarrelers, which is kind of surprising now that I think about it. And they have about equivalent to melee attack. Can they get through their melee defense? I guess we'll find out. At least both of our units of Thunderers are still being kept safe by the Quarrelers in terms of them taking up the melee slot. And it looks like the balance of power is almost even, about 7% in our favor now, almost 50-50. It looks like a unit of trolls. Okay, I can't even spot them in here, unfortunately. I wish that when you pressed space to, like, see stuff, that it could, I don't know, light up the darkness of the woods as well. Would be nice. Or just generally on dark maps. Or maybe there would be a hotkey to, like, make a map, like, a little bit brighter. Just a bit would work. Anyway. Battle is still going, surprisingly, and it looks like some of our Longbeards have returned to the line. They are heavily damaged, and we're essentially blobbing up all of these sort of dregs of our units together. The benefit of this is that since the enemy doesn't seem to have any spells or any splash damage anymore, the units can effectively cover for each other such that the damage is distributed amongst the various different units, and no one already severely damaged unit thus takes a lot of Alpha Strike damage and thus is forced to rout again. It looks like we finally cleared a path to the enemy lord. The bounce power has shifted to about 60% in our favor, and Mr. Stotchel Gunrickson, having killed 166 orcs and probably a fair few trolls, has found the enemy Orc Shaman, and it looks like the Orc Shaman has seen his doom upon him, and just like that, suddenly the enemy army will break. Man, what a great fight. Certainly we haven't seen a lot of our range units versus their range units, both running out of ammunition and in desperation fighting each other in melee as well. Absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed that. Ooh, alrighty, that was one of the best fights in the campaign. So late in the campaign, too. A little bit surprising, but damn, was it a fun one. And just barely holding on, basically our entire army routing here and there, and then coming back, our range units all running out of ammunition and being forced to fight in melee as well, and the same thing of the enemy as well. Our lord managed to stick around in big part, I think, because this is a Valea's blessing, or whatever the trait is that he has that gives him recovery, so he was a little bit stronger despite being a basic sort of usually auto-resolve lord. Fantastic. Just Quarrelers, Longbeards, and Dwarf Warriors against the enemy. Beautiful fight. We're gonna heal up. I don't know whether the auto-resolve will let us auto-resolve this, but I guess we'll see next turn.
Come with me if you want to die.
Oh, it looks like the Slaanesh will actually attack Grimly. That's good to see, man. This this entire episode is going to be one big ol' end turn. Not that I'm complaining, but damn. Let's see. We got Fiends of Slaanesh. We got tons of Hellstriders. Everybody's high rank since I guess these guys have been sitting around here. Some spawn and all that stuff. Let's see if they can rush us quickly enough for us to not be able to knock them out at range. Go. I forgot to quick save the last 2 or 3 battles, because I got so excited about fighting them. Alright, there we go.
Victory will be ours! For the greater man trophy! We will kill them all!
Oh, the water is going absolutely nuts here. What the heck? Well, it happens. This bug admittedly has been around for a long time, and I was hoping that if we got closer to the water that would stop, but it looks like we're just going to have to deal with it. Anyway, we're going to start the battle off with those good old bolt throwers. This is our bolt thrower army after all, and they've got plenty of good targets. The enemy Herald of Slaanesh down to about half HP, some of the enemy Fiends down to half HP as well, and the enemy Seeker Chariots melting away as they attempt to approach. So these ones were fired upon and heavily damaged by the bolt thrower long before they got here. The enemy Lord's in a similar position as it was heavily damaged before it arrived, and of course the enemy units and the enemy army in general are charging towards us rapidly. It is a Slaaneshi host after all, and even their marauders run at 53 speed. Not fast enough to lose a ton of, a ton of their elites, however, as it looks like the Fiends of Slaanesh are pretty much done as well. And I believe another unit has been sniped and killed off at this point by our bolt throwers. There we go. And it looks like it'll only be Demonettes, Forsaken, and Marauders that close the distance, at least over on the left and center. Over on the right flank, however, it's a little bit of a different story. Some of the Fiends, Chaos Spawn, have made it forward towards us with those Marauders of Slaanesh. And ooh, I actually really like the eye glow on the Marauders of Slaanesh. That's pretty darn good. Alright, well, let's hope that Grimly's Grumbling Guard and the rest of the Longbeards can hold the line here. Long story shorts, with the Master Rune of Oath and Steel and Stand Your Ground up to 144 melee defense and 165 armor, enemy's going to have a very difficult time getting through that. And that's, I guess, a very nice thing about fighting the Slaaneshi here, as armies that can, on occasion, kill off other enemy armies at range have trouble doing so. I was originally wanting to send Grombrindal down to fight the Slaaneshi for that exact reason, as they're one of the few factions that are likely to be able to run the gauntlet of torpedoes and flames from his Iron Drakes, and actually force him into some melee action. And, man, once again, the river is going nuts, but, you know, maybe the soporific musk or whatever incense the Slaaneshi are burning is just causing us trouble. Anyway, it looks like with that, the enemy army is broken, unlike the ultra-lengthy brawl we had against the Orcs. This is a very fast battle, but, well, it's Slaanesh, so they hit fast and they live fast, they die fast, etc. A lovely fight. We do manage to pull it off. We got a little bit of damage to one of our artillery pieces as they took one charge from a unit of enemy Hellstriders, but otherwise our Longbeards were able to hold back the entirety of all the enemy infantry that reached us, while the bolt throwers proved extremely effective at obliterating the fragile Slaaneshi elites at range. Alright, there we go. Not too bad. The enemy did get a couple of nice charges in, including heavily, well, maybe not heavily, but at least damaging the grilled rat skewers, but otherwise, the battle went pretty darn well. The Fiends of Slaanesh were by and large destroyed by the units of bolt throwers at range, and frankly, same for the enemy lord. And though the other elements of the enemy army were able to close the distance, it didn't go so well. Still very happy with the performance of the bolt throwers. They vastly outdid the damage of the Quarrelers here, and I guess they had some solid targets, but just generally speaking, again, regular-sized crossbows, overcompensated Quarrels, grilled rat skewers, and Dalnolas all did pretty great. As for the units of Longbeards, it looks like by a fairly large margin, the long story shorts got the most kills and the most damage. As for the crossbows, lastly, it looks like the Karagrill bows, rather, landed many blows. Lovely. Anyway, we are going to, I guess, heal up just in case we get attacked again, because there should be other Slaanesh armies nearby, so who knows. Alrighty, there we go. Time for 50 million new announcements. Deleted Astragoth, Iron Hand, defeated, and deleted, I guess. Gromby also gets a 20% spell resistance bonus out of that. Interesting. I do wonder how, what his spell resistance is now at. Just out of curiosity, on him himself. It is at 95%. Pretty solid, I would say. And, oh, these guys are still here. They could actually move down to Vinscore, but then you moved into Dragonmort, and, well, admittedly, we don't really care about Dragonmort, but it's the principle of the thing. I guess we're going to have to choose whether we go to Monolith of Beorg or whether we go here. We do really need another army here, and, I mean, other armies are on the way as soon as they're done dealing with Helpit. Anyway, Master Mason, Trickster Cult discovered. Not surprising. And we'll burn it down immediately. I see we're able to discover it fairly quickly, and Gotri, you may as well move to whatever this place is. Standard Discipline, Fencer's Blades, Colonize. Dwarf Bride, Stonemason, Powdermaker, Armor of Destiny, Runesmith's Apprentice, an Engineer's Knapsack, Ranger's Quiver. Man, we keep getting a lot of these, but they don't serve too much of a purpose, unfortunately. Ally Occupy Settlement. They actually did something that we told them to do. Take back the city north. Granted, this probably means that the forces of chaos and the orcs will continue attempting to attack it now, but, well, maybe they can hold it since we've given them about 300,000 gold, which is a fair bit. Anyway, Sacred Duty, Tech researched, and that was the cult that we destroyed. Province secured. Alright, I see that the Trickster's cult has not been destroyed, meaning they still do have a cult somewhere, right? And it should be Zinch. Huh. That couldn't have been a... Well, I guess we'll see. Do you normally have the visibility of the changeling in diplomacy? I actually don't know. I guess we'll find out at some point. Anyway, you can go into, I guess, Masters of Steel. No, Power of the Guilds. There we go. I was trying to remember what I did for the territories that we're supposed to give away. Anyway, we're going to have to build these up, especially while we wait for the frickin' Zinchian corruption to go down, unless these guys screw it all up again. Also, how are you doing now? -5 provinces with low control, a little bit better. Imperial Authority's getting a little bit better too. We're gonna wait for, I guess, 2 more turns and probably give up at Upper Reich River. This place should be decent in terms of being able to hold. I would think so. And sort of slowly start giving them their territories. We don't have to wait until everything is finished in terms of upgrades and stuff. Frankly, something like Old Riding, yeah, there's a few things that need to be completed, but as long as the base version is completed, and then it's fine, because the Imperials should just be able to upgrade it. So yeah, you know what, let's give them Old Riding at least to start, and just hope that they don't screw it up. Yes, alright, so that's Schrammleben. Let's start with you. Like so. I'm not gonna take anything. 231, pretty solid, but it's not like we're looking for anything from you. And, okay, I actually have to check what the other territories are called. Schrammleben. Huh! Well, that's interesting. It actually lost the defensive structure. I actually don't like that. I don't like that one bit. They should have kept the defensive structure. I thought that they did. I swear we gave them something just to double check that, and they were able to keep it, because the specific thing I wanted to do is to transfer them territories with defensive structures. Okay, you know what? Let's try Fort Braher. Not that it matters, really, because it's the main territory that really needs those, but still a little bit odd. Where are we here? Try that. Okay, so this place did keep the guardhouse. Huh. That's interesting. So I guess main settlements don't keep them, but minor settlements do. What the heck? What is the basis for that? That's it's a little bit weird. But oh well. Anyway, you can have this entire province. Let's see. And it's at -7. That didn't keep the public order building. They didn't keep the defensive building. The main two buildings that I wanted them to keep in the main territory. But hopefully they can build them and upgrade them, especially since we've given them $1 billion money as well. If that's the case, then I guess there's other territories that we can freely give up to them. I mean, I like this place. Well, I mean, we can at least wait for the main structures to get upgraded, so we can make maybe a turn for a couple of these. Oh, you can build a... I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter, because it's decent likelihood that they won't be able to keep it. But anyway. Let's start from the top again, shall we? Thorgrim. Now you... I mean... You're recruiting. I mean, you're probably better off to take Orgor, especially since it's on the way down to Eltharion, since you're going to go down there. And, ooh, yes, these guys are still here. Good. All right, we will quick save this, and then we'll auto-resolve it, because this is obviously a waste of Thorgrim's precious time. Man, some fantastic battles this particular episode. Love it. Anyway, occupy. And Talisman of Preservation and the Blight, we will go for Venerate. Now, what am I talking about? Tribute to the High King. Yeah, we're keeping this place. Alright, so delete this, and we can upgrade Broken Tooth Camp immediately to Tier 5. Yes, we'll upgrade you, and then everything else looks good. Beautiful. We can also upgrade the Exotic Animal Tamer here. Alrighty, and I believe that's it for Thorgrim. Belegar, okay, just so I don't forget, let's actually just immediately take Flying Fortress, because who knows? I have a bad tendency of accidentally leaving lords besieging and then wasting a turn like that. Alright, occupy. And there goes their capital. Again, Gelt is probably going to be pretty unhappy about this whole situation, but, well, if we give him a nice territory, he'll probably be fine with it all. We'll keep the Rune Forge. What we definitely need here is the Makazungor and the Trading Depot. I guess we can get rid of the Foundry, it isn't necessary. Oh. And I guess we'll get rid of the Monument of Grimnir as well. We don't really need that many of them. And we certainly have enough for our purposes at the current time. Anyway, who else do we have? Joseph of Zorn. Do we have no full stack? These guys are hanging around Bazarak's last stand, but I feel that they won't be able to do anything with it. You're going to attack Tidal Flats. Quick little auto-resolve, I'd wager. Probably gonna get damage, and who knows, maybe Malice has a full stack nearby. It's weird that we haven't spotted his stack yet, as in his main stack. I feel like he's trying to get around us, so we might encounter him to the north while we're here. I guess we're gonna have to see. This is also all territory that we're not going to keep, so we're most likely going to just trade it to these ogres. And get them to basically break their agreement against the Skaven and see if they can't fight the Skaven. Give them this territory. I mean, because we don't really have anybody else here that can hold it for us, and... a lot of yellow territory that we don't need. Though I still find it a little bit weird that dwarfs don't like dwelling in hills. Seems odd, but anyway. They're just small mountains. Anyway, Grimly, you will probably have to fight this again. First Circle has, yeah, a very strong garrison. In fact, this will be a much bigger fight than the fight that we got against Orgi. Or is that pronounced... I'm gonna say Orgi. But anyway, yeah, we'll have to leave that one until next episode, I think. And hey, you're going to reclaim Yetchich. That's great, because then we don't have to do it for you. Alright, unfortunately, Svedora went down by several tiers. We need something to trade for Vitsi, so that we can trade it back to these guys. I also see the rebels are back, but I don't think they can take this. And also, would you please take this? Please don't make us do it for you. Maybe, oh, they all seem to be recruiting. Maybe I gave them too much gold, and now they're just wasting all their time recruiting. Anyway, Grimly, stay where you are. I think we'll save that battle for next episode. And then you. I mean, I'd rather lose Dragonmort than lose... I wonder. You can go this far. And we won't be able to reach it. I was wondering whether we could sack Karaz-a-Karak, then pass through it, and then get to a Monolith of Beorg, but it looks like that's not the case. So they're just going to get as close to it as possible, and we'll see if this guy attempts to attack us or move down to Vinskor. Either way, if he stays, we'll be able to capture this place and then build another sort of guard army here. Might even do an auto-resolve build them right here or something like that. Anyway, folks, I think with that, we are pretty much out of time, or at least I would imagine so. There's a lot of battles that happened, and I'm gonna call it here. Yeah, we're up to 920,000 gold per turn. Not bad. Anyway, next time we'll wipe out the Order of Loremasters for good with one more quick little auto-resolve, and we'll start the episode off by attacking both the forces of Khorne here and the forces of Slaanesh again, up north with Grimly, and continuing to... Oh, these guys, they didn't sally out. I guess they were too afraid of this army, eh? Alright, I guess we could just auto-resolve this. I mean, yeah, they do have a couple of decent units, but I think we all know we just bombard them out of range because it's a settlement. So it's probably not just worth our time. Yeah, even the auto-resolve basically did no damage to us. And frankly, all of the Troll Hammer Torps would have been fantastic against the fact that pretty much all the units in this army are large units, and the very limited amount of infantry would have got obliterated by the engineers. Anyway, we're gonna have to give this one back to our lizard friends here shortly. Anyway, Talisman of Preservation, Brewmaster, sure. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm gonna call it here next time while we keep advancing everywhere we can and reclaiming those realms as one does. Stay tuned for more. Oh, I forgot about this as well. Wait. I say there's a lot of these places where I might potentially forget, but yeah, I don't think you're going to attack us again, so we'll just auto-resolve Thessos as well. That was such a nice fight, though. Alright, and ooh, wait, I think also next episode, unless I'm mistaken, Trickster's Home, Powder Maker, whatever, if we take Morton's Home, which is... I mean, it's defended. I wonder if we can auto-resolve it. Because Morton's Home is probably the last territory here before we can just transfer a bunch of these territories back to the Central Confederacy and such. Which would be nice. I just want to see what this says. No, alright, fine, we'll give them a chance to sally out at the next end turn then. Not a big deal at all. Anyway, like I said, calling it here, more Dabbie to come. Stay tuned, don't forget to leave those likes and comments below as they will determine how long the campaign continues to run for. All glory to the algorithm. Ooh, Mechanized Army's nearly ready. And thanks for watching.